I request everyone to please round applause for our guest speakers. Good afternoon to our esteemed guest speakers, faculty, and students. I'm Ms. Akanksha Rawat, and I'm your anchor for today's session on Decoding Union Budget 2025. Before we begin to unfold the event for the day, we will have the ceremonial lamp lighting, symbolically marking the beginning of our event. I now request Dr. Amit Oak, sir, and all our esteemed guest speakers to kindly come on the stage for the lamp lighting ceremony. We will now invoke in the blessings of Goddess of Knowledge and Wisdom. I kindly request all to stand for Saraswati Vandana. या शुभ्रवस्त्रावृता या वीणावरदण्डमण्डितकरा या श्वेत पद्मासना या ब्रह्माच्युतशङ्कर प्रभृतिभिः देवै सदा वन्दिता सरस्वती भगवती निःशेष जाड्यापहा I will now request all our distinguished speakers to be seated. The Honorable Finance Minister presented the Union Budget 2025 on 5th 1st, 2025. Today, we all are gathered here for this special event along with our esteemed guest speakers who will share their insights and perspectives on what this budget means for all of us and also its impact on our economy. Our distinguished speakers will delve into key highlights, opportunities, and challenges presented by the budget, provide us with valuable knowledge, and throw light on what this budget means for our future. To formally commence our event, it is my privilege to introduce and invite Dr. Amit Oksar for the opening address. Dr. Amit Oksar is the Chief Operations Officer at Vidyalankar Institute of Technology and Director of VIT School of Management. In his role as the COO, he manages the operations of the institute, strategizes on the budgetary allocation, supervises the financial management and routine accounts, directs the student council activities, and guides the team on budgeting and sponsorship, and also looks into the smooth execution of our department and institute events. With his rich and varied experience in the corporate world in training and mentoring roles, media and film finance, and financial services marketing, he imparts many practical and result-oriented lessons in management to the student community. We welcome you, sir.
Distinct dignitaries, distinguished members of Vidyalankar Group, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear students, friends, Namaskar. Union budget builds on the vision set out in the previous budgets and provides a blueprint for steering the economy towards a sustained high growth trajectory. The Union Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs, Nirmala Sitharaman, presented the Union budget in the Parliament this February 2025. Today, we gather to delve into a critical examination of the recently presented Union budget, a document that outlines the financial roadmap for the coming year and directly impacts the lives of our citizens. This analysis will provide a comprehensive look at the government priorities, resource allocation, and potential economic implications, allowing us to understand how the budget aims to address current challenges and drive future growth. This budget projects government's efforts to accelerate growth, secure inclusive development, invigorate private sector investment, uplift household sentiments, enhancing spending power of India's rising middle class. In this budget, the proposed development measures span 10 broad areas, focusing on very few, Annadata and Nari. Spurring agricultural growth and productivity is one of the main factors, building rural prosperity and resilience, taking everyone together on an inclusive growth path, boosting manufacturing and furthering Make in India, supporting MSMEs, enabling employment-led development, investing in people, economy, and innovation, securing energy supplies, promoting exports, and nurturing innovation. We at Vidyalankar School of Management have conducted one pre-budget survey with our management students on expectations from the budget. I am happy to share that our students have almost hit the nail on the head. They had expressed their expectations from the budget in the sectors like education, healthcare, pharmaceuticals. They have opined about the budget for the common man. I am happy to share that the following key policy highlights of the union budgets were expressed, or rather, I would say predicted by our management students. Finance and economy increase in FDI limit, which has been done, and the limit will be increased from 75% to 100% for companies which invest the entire premium in India. A new income tax bill will be introduced. That was what many people had opted for. Governance, increasing governance was many people who had suggested for. A high-level committee for regulatory reforms will be set for reviewing all non-financial sector regulations, certification, licenses, and permissions. The committee will make recommendations within a year. A mechanism will be set up under the Financial Stability and Development Council to evaluate the impact of current financial regulations. Industry and commerce, boost to the economy. To improve credit access, credit guarantee cover will be increased. Education, the most important for us. Boost the education sector. In the next year, 10,000 additional seats will be added in medical colleges and hospitals with the goal of adding 75,000 seats in the next 5 years. This was the first time we had conducted such an exercise to motivate our own students to take an active interest in this annual budget activity. We intend to take this activity to a further level. In order to achieve that, and to more formally understand the basic intricacies of the budget presented by the Honorable Madam Finance Minister, I now request all our esteemed panel members to debate, discuss, and educate all of us with the budgetary provisions and its impact on the economy as a whole, but more importantly, to us as a common man and to you all. So, on behalf of Vidyalankar Group, I welcome all the esteemed dignitaries to the lovely campus of Vidyalankar. Dhanyavad.
Thank you, sir. It is my pleasure to now introduce our distinguished speakers to you. I would like to introduce Ms. Samita Shah. Ms. Samita Shah is Vice President, Corporate Finance, Treasury and Risk Management of Tata Steel Limited. She is responsible for managing the treasury and the financing requirements of Tata Steel Group. She manages the relationship with the financial stakeholders, including banks, rating agencies, and investors. She is also the Chief Risk Officer for Tata Steel and has spearheaded the implementation of an enterprise-wide risk management process across the Tata Steel Group. Ms. Samita Shah serves on the boards of Tata BlueScope Private Limited, Tata Steel Minerals Canada Limited, TS Global Procurement Cooperative Private Limited, Tata Steel Foundation, and Tata Advancement System Limited. She is the chairperson of TRF Limited. Ms. Samita Shah joined Tata Steel in 2012 after 20 years of experience in investment banking. She has BA in Economics from Mumbai University and MBA from the Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad. We welcome you, ma'am. I request you to kindly come on the dais. I would now introduce Mr. Rajesh Sehgal. Mr. Rajesh Sehgal, Managing Partner, Equanimity Investment, a seasoned investor and industry leader with over 2 decades of experience in early stage investing, private equity, and public equity funds. Mr. Rajesh has established himself as a prominent figure in the global investment landscape. His deep understanding of emerging markets and his ability to identify promising opportunities have made him a sought-after advisor to both established corporations and startups. He is the founding chair of TRUS India, a pioneer in promoting transparency and accountability in corporate reporting. He is chairperson and chief functionary of TFA Society India, a driving force in advancing financial education and professional standards. He is a board member of TIE Mumbai, actively supporting entrepreneurs and fostering innovation in the fintech sector. Mr. Rajesh is a board member of Apar Industries Limited, contributing to the growth and success of a leading industrial company. He is a prolific angel investor, where he backs promising startups and providing mentorship to their management team's investment expertise. He has a diverse portfolio with experience of investing in companies across various industries and stages of development. Mr. Rajesh studied at Wharton and Accelerate, where he built a strong foundation in finance and management. He is a CFA charter holder, where he demonstrated commitment to professional excellence. Mr. Rajesh also holds a postgraduate diploma in securities law with a deep understanding of legal and regulatory framework. We welcome you, Mr. Rajesh. I request you to kindly come on the dais. I now request my co-host, Ms. Sana, to introduce our guest speakers. Over to you, Sana. Thank you, Akanksha. Now, I would like to introduce CA Sanjeev Gokhale. Mr. Sanjeev Gokhale is a practicing CA in Mumbai and a prominent tax consultant for the last 33 years. His areas of expertise are personal income tax, investment, and audit management. Mr. Gokhale completed his BCom SCA graduate CWA with an All India rank of 15 in Post Accountancy Final Exam. Mr. Gokhale has acted as a guest faculty in employee training programs for state and central government on subjects of taxation and investment. He has delivered speeches on different forums at various colleges, institutions, and charitable trusts on subjects related to budget, tax, and GST. He is also a visiting professor at Vijay College for last 20 years. Mr. Gokhale has strong media presence. He has been doing taxation program at ABP Maza Marathi News Channel for the last 13 years in his show Paisa Zala Mota as an expert on income tax. He appears regularly as a subject matter expert on live shows on budget analysis as well as in interviews on taxation on All India Radio and Doordarshan. His articles on income tax published every Monday in Maharashtra Times for the last 3 years. Welcome, Mr. Gokhale. I would request you to come up on stage. Now, I would like to introduce Mr. Srinivas Sinte. Mr. Srinivas Sinte is a computer engineer with a PhD from IIT Bombay and serves as a director on CFA Society India's board. He also leads the content and AI work at HDFC AMC. He codes in Python and has an avid interest in promoting AI and machine learning use in investment decision making. Prior to joining HDFC AMC, Mr. Srinivas was a director of professional learning and advocacy at CFA Institute. Before that, Mr. Srinivas worked as the country trading strategist for Citigroup in Japan. Mr. Srinivas has worked for over 2 decades in the investment industry. He has worked closely with the key stakeholders both in Japan and in India's topmost institutions, including regulatory bodies. Welcome, Mr. Srinivas. I would request you to come upon the stage. Now, I would request our respected moderator, Mr. Srinivas Sinte, to begin the panel discussion. Over to you, sir.
Hello. Yeah, so thank you very much for having me here. It's a pleasure and a privilege to come back to your institute, and we'll try to do the best of this session, which is one of the key learning outcomes. Although it is called Decoding the Union Budget 2025, I think one of the key outcomes, hopefully, is also see if there's some learning for all of us, not just you, as students of the economy. So I'll start with 5 things, and 2 of these things are to do with quotes from the budget. I don't know if anybody in the group who has actually read the budget or listened to the budget. Anyone? Oh, almost all of you. Okay, so how many quotes did the budget have? Anyway, so we don't have much time. I think 1 hour, 15 minutes is our time allocated.
there are three very, very esteemed speakers. My job is to just ask questions, right? I'll spend this next 5 minutes talking about the 5 points that really I thought made an impact on me as a person and a student of the economy. The first point was the first of the 2 points are to do with the quotes. And these quotes are from two very famous literators from southern India. But I thought it is important because the literature is a reflection not only of the current society, but literature gives you a mirror of what is going to happen in the future. So the first quote is from Gurzada Rao, is a Telugu dramatist and also a writer. And this quote is to do with he is saying that the country is not just the soil that the country has got, but it's actually about its people. That's quote number one. And I'll come back to the 3 points that I have with regard to the economy and why this quote becomes important. A country is not just its soil, meaning the material or the buildings that a country has got, but its people. The second quote is from Tiruvallur. I don't know if I've pronounced it right. But like the Dohas, I think there are Kannurs in Tamil Nadu. Is there anybody who knows Tiruvallur here? I tried asking a colleague from Tamil Nadu if she knows Tiruvallur, but she said no, she doesn't know. It's probably the oldest language in the world. That's debatable, but it's still a very, very old language. And the quote is to do with governance. So all of us expect rain, right? Come May, we expect a lot of rain. So like people expect rain, people also expect good governance. So that is the second quote. Now, why are these 2 quotes important? Because I think the Honorable Finance Minister has tried to put these thoughts into action. And the first of the actions was to do with the income tax, right? The personal income tax. So see, now my vantage point here is to give you a look at literature, at the socio-economy, as well as something to do with tech. You may have heard about this budget hundreds of times from different channels and different people. If you just Google it, so just a Google search away. By the way, we just use AI. I just use AI to answer all your questions. But I think what people can bring over here is the insights which AI can't do. So the first quote, the first aspect of the economy is the income tax. And the income tax, what the budget is trying to do is trying to give a lot of disposable income in the hands of salaried people or business people by raising the income tax slab, no income tax till 12 lakh rupees, right? There's a huge amount of 1 trillion rupees of money. You can count how many zeros, 12 zeros in front of one. So that goes back to the people. And because suppose you are paying 20 rupees of tax, and that tax has now become 10 rupees or 0 rupees, what will you do with that 20 rupees? You'll save some of it and you'll spend the rest, right? So the consumer spending cycle will be out. So that's the first one. And so this thing ties with the first quote, which is about the people. So she's trying to, put people in the center of the budget. The second aspect is the budget is trying to. It is a very responsible budget. Many people have called it a constructive budget by trying to keep the country's finances under check. By giving a glide path of fiscal deficit. How much can we borrow? Should we borrow a lot so that we don't really care? We borrow a lot, but the people who are going to come after 100 years or 200 years, they will have to face that debt. Somebody will have to repay back that debt. So she's trying to keep the debt levels down by giving a glide path for a good fiscal deficit. And the third is there's a lot of emphasis, as always is there, on education, on skilling. And of course, there are a lot of other things also that education, we just see education as just one aspect. But for education to happen, there have to be teachers, there have to be schools, there has to be roads, there have to be cycles and so on. But what the budget has tried to do is, put the emphasis on education, as Amit sir said in his talk, lots of increasing the number of medical seats, increasing the number of IITs, there is 50,000 tinkering labs. I did not know that there are already 10,000 tinkering labs. I don't know what a tinkering lab means, but what I know, I come from a place called Popoli, and it's a small place. It's not a village exactly. It's a town. But if you go from Popoli to Alibag, then you'll find lots of villages. From either side of the road, lots of villages around the road, and you'll see that these villages, the schools that these folks go to, there is no science lab. So the budget is trying to address these three aspects, and there's a lot more, really a lot more. And I'll leave that job to the honorable experts on this panel. So maybe I should go to Gokhale sir next to deal. So sorry, so the way this is going to happen, 5 minutes of time from each of us. So that's 15, 20 minutes gone. And after that, we go to a round of Q&A. But as we do this, if you have any questions, I think you should just put your hands up. We've got a list of 15 questions because the whole idea is to discuss and debate, as Amit sir said, right? So, and from that discussion and debate, hopefully some knowledge comes out.
Thank you, Srinivas sir. I think sir touched upon the core issue as far as the common man is concerned about the taxation. I remember I had come here last budget in July, where I had given some initial aspect of taxation in India, how taxation was very high of 94% in 1997, and it has come down to now 9% and further down. See, tax is a basic revenue to the government, and therefore no government would like to sacrifice that revenue. And that too, when the salaried employees are concerned, the government gets revenue every month by way of deduction of tax from their salaries. However, this budget is unique. As far as I am concerned, I am covering this budget for many years, more than 20 years. This is the maximum benefit given in the tax laws. We'll elaborate subsequently. But in my opening remarks, I said this is a unique budget where I find taxpayers, especially middle class taxpayers, are considered. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman told that we want to make samman of this taxpayer. But even though that what she said, the basic idea behind this is that middle class is the honest taxpayer. They were dissatisfied last few years. One more thing, that consumption theory, which again will elaborate subsequently, which requires money in the hands of middle class to spend, and that was possible through tax reduction. Third point, which is again an important and relevant with this taxation changes, is about there was no major change as far as basic exemption is concerned since 2014. Of course, one more element which is we find in last 3-4 years about the new tax regime, where the system do not give you any tax concessions or deductions, but reduces the tax what you have to pay, thereby allowing you to have a more disposable income for your consumption as well as saving. Since this financial literacy is now on the rise because of WhatsApp University we have, many of us, we already know where to invest, how to invest. There are a number of influencers who guide us where to invest. And therefore, instead of asking a taxpayer to invest in a specific manner to get tax deduction is no more now required. That is what the philosophy is. And therefore, the new tax regime, to make it more popular, the tax the concessions are given only in the new regime. And of course, when we discuss further, we'll elaborate on the exact concessions, what they are. Some misconception about among the even common man about that 12 lakh fish. Because anybody, even Srinivas sir say up to 12 lakh, there is no tax. It's a myth. It's not so. If the income is less than 12 lakh, the tax is zero. Even if it goes little beyond that, you have to pay tax. We'll elaborate that. But my opening remark is that taxation was a theme. And of course, the other theme of the budget, which are in line with last two budgets. If you remember, last year interim budget had come on 1st February 24 before election, which had not given any tax concession, but the finance minister narrated the vision for the Vikasit Bharat by 2047. That required some policy decisions, some streamlining the efforts of the government towards that Vikasit Bharat. And I think last time also I had given an example of 40,000 Vande Bharat coach. The question was raised whether you want to create so many of Vande Bharat, where the most of the population is poor. The madam said, no, we don't want that so many Vande Bharat. But when we say we are Vikasit Bharat, in that case, our all coaches for even passengers will be in the line with Vande Bharat. That is what we dream. And dreaming is the birthright of everyone. We dream. No, why not to dream? And that too, a dream by a finance minister for a country for next 25 years will be, of course, a good dream. And therefore, I would say that in the line of last 2 years, 2 budgets, this budget also focuses on the key infrastructure, investments, agriculture, youth, MSME, all those elements which will strengthen the economy towards that Vikasit Bharat by 2047. They are taken care in the budget. And therefore, in that line, we must appreciate them. Thank you.
See, I was telling because I thought you'd say ladies first.
My bad. Sorry, yeah.
No, thanks, Srinivas. I think quickly, I have some few thoughts listed here just in case I don't miss anything. I think overall, let me start with the conclusion. This was among one of the better budgets I've seen in the last 25, 30 years. There have been other budgets which, were as, some of them were path-breaking, some of them were really ahead of their time. But I think this budget, this time, we have to congratulate the finance minister and the finance ministry for putting out what they did, given the circumstances. And we'll go through some of the points that I have. So what essentially is a budget? And no, I'm not going to give you a lecture of what is a budget, but just, put out there as a context so that we know what we are talking about. I think as a country, India puts out a budget. I think for our own families, each of us, at some level, whether your parents, somewhere, there's a budget that gets drawn, whether it's a monthly budget or an annual budget. So the budget that we're talking about essentially has two sides. One is the income side and the other is the expenditure side. And all the complexities that we can talk about over the next hour or so are going to be revolving around these two heads. Bottom line is we want to see whether the income is more than the expenditure or vice versa, right? So just a quick show of hands. Typically in the Indian budget, which side is greater than the other? Income is more or expenditure is more? Why? Have you ever asked?
Yes.
Why are we spending more than we can earn? अपने घर पे करते हो क्या ऐसे? So these are the things that we got to think about. Why are we spending more every year? Someone said India is a poor country. Yeah, yeah. So many poor families. Do they spend more than what they can earn? Yeah, please.
Because India is developing country and the requirement of more expenditure for development activity.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that because that is one of the key points I have here. Good point. So I think here are my few comments on the budget and why I think it's a great document set there. So I think for the first time in a decade, the last 10 years that I've seen, the government has focused more on consumption and savings rather than on infrastructure. It goes without saying that India still needs the infrastructure. You just have to step out of your college, of your house, etc., to figure out that you have zero the infrastructure need. But I think for the first time in 10 years at least that I've seen, the focus is now on savings and consumption. And again, something that we can discuss in deeper detail. There's also been a shift in this budget that the government has announced. The focus is moving away from fiscal deficit, which is that income expenditure gap. It is moving from there to debt to GDP, right? So debt to GDP is another parameter, another metric that we use to figure out the health of an economy. And the focus that the government is now saying is shifting. See, these are big things that happen, not necessarily impacting our day-to-day lives like a tax change does, but these impact us over the longer run. The other big news that came out of the budget that was announced is 100% FDI for the insurance sector. It's been a huge thing. I remember when insurance got liberalized, foreigners were hardly allowed to participate. And then we started slowly and gradually, and today it's a big thing that we have 100% FDI. The other thing was crypto. How many of us indulge or entertain thoughts of crypto? Oh, very few. Okay, great. So some very hesitant hands. So I think stricter compliance requirements have been laid out. Again, there are two sides to it, saying, why is it so strict, etc. But I think on the other hand, the way we got to see it is it's actually being recognized at the highest level, the highest authorities in the country. that crypto is an asset class which is here to stay. And of course, because it's a new asset class, nobody knows more about it. It's going to be strictly controlled. I think it's a good thing. It's just a process we all have to go through. I'm not going to go through any more details, but I think on the tax part that you touched some, something, and I think for all of us at an individual level, tax really matters. So just two last points. One is on tax cuts that were announced, and we can debate about that 12 lakh limit, etc. But I think if you look at India, and please remember, budget is not about individuals, it's about the aggregate. It's about the country as a whole. It's not about middle class and lower middle class and upper class. It's not about all of that. It's about the whole. So when you look at India, we are 140 people, 140 crore people. Do you know how many people file taxes? Tax देने का नहीं है, income tax return file करनी. Yes, 140 crore लोग हैं, 8 crores. Out of 140 crores, 8 crore people file taxes. Do you know how many people typically on an average pay tax? ये थोड़ा भी 1 रुपए पे टैक्स भरा है गवर्नमेंट को. Yes. See, when a speaker asks it, guys, ना मतलब समझने एकदम extreme कुछ answer है, तभी पूछ रहे हैं. 2 crores. Do you know after the tax cut how many people are going to pay tax? Estimate 1 crore. So it's great that tax cuts हो गया, money in the hands of people, etc. But you also have to think like an economist, and as I said, at an aggregate level, 1 crore people are going to pay tax, and that tax is going to support, because that's the revenue for government, right? Largely, that is going to support 140 crore population, right? Again, a number to think about and keep in mind. The other thing about the tax cut, that jumps out when we are all very happy that अरे tax cut हो गया, we have more money to spend, etc. Remember, tax cut खाली उसके लिए हुआ है जो tax भर रहा था ना. सबके लिए क्या tax cut है? तुम्हारे लिए क्या tax cut है? तुम लोग तो अभी तक फीस भर रहे हो. हाँ, tax cut नहीं है. जब भी पैसा आएगा घर में तभी tax cut आएगा. But the other way to look about it is this tax cut, and I think one number was mentioned, 1 lakh crores. 1 lakh crore rupees is going to go into the hands of the people because it's not being taxed. But do you know that is 0.5% of the total consumption economy in India? 0.5%. मतलब अगर इंडिया में 100 रुपया का कुछ काम हो रहा है तो 50 पैसा फ्री हुआ, क्या इम्पैक्ट होगा? ऐसा नहीं होगा. But I'm just laying it out there so that we can discuss and debate these parameters. Thank you, Srini. It's all from me.
My bad. Over to you, Sunita. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everybody. It's afternoon. I don't know and how interesting this talk is that people are still attentive. I must thank Harsh for inviting here, and it's a pleasure to be here with all of you. We've heard some comments on the budget, and I think a lot has been said. So I'm going to take a little bit of a contrary stance. One of the core tenets of Indian philosophy is that you must argue both sides, because that's when you really, really learn. You hear both sides of the argument. So I'm going to try and give you a slightly different perspective. And as always, you must reach your own independent opinion, because in today's world, in any time, especially in today's world where there's so much of miscommunication, I will always say, listen to both sides of the debate and then arrive at your own conclusion. I would just say that, some things for you to think about. The budget, as Rajesh just explained, is essentially, it's a statement of your expenditure and your income. It sends some broad signals. It's used very often to kind of play to the gallery and to kind of make some, nice announcements. And that's really what it is. So it attracts, I think, a lot of attention, more than what it is due, because there are a lot of actions which the government actually takes, which are just done outside the budget, especially if they are unpopular, especially if they are, not likely to be well received. The tendency is to actually do a lot of this outside the budget. So what actually affects us as an economy There is just that much the budget does. I'm not saying it's not important, but I think it gets a disproportionate amount of attention and importance. And if you would go by the media coverage, etc., it's as if that is the be all and end all of what happens in the Indian economy. And the reality is, for me, I'm not saying again, it's not important, but it's a minor thing. And there are a lot of announcements and a lot of policy changes which actually affect us as an economy far more structurally, which are all done outside the budget. So, I presume many of you are students of management. Can I have a show of hands? Okay, so largely MBA. So I would encourage you to not just look at the budget, and I was very surprised when I saw so many of you all raised your hand that you all have listened to the budget. I must tell you, when I was a student, I never listened. But, please pay attention to the other activities which are happening outside the budget, because there are several which happen, which have a far more, impact on us as citizens of this country than what gets done in the budget. The second thing I would say is, it's been obviously very well received this year's budget because it has these significant cuts in income tax, which is something which appeals to all of us as individuals, right? Because who would not like to pay, less taxes? But you must bear in mind that, again, I think a lot of statistics which you shared, which I don't want to repeat, which shows the extent of the cut and how minor it is in the overall scheme of things. The other thing for all of you to bear in mind is that all of us here, and while you all might not pay income taxes, I presume nobody's studying and all of it, nobody's working and everybody is, doesn't really have an income, so you're not paying income tax. The taxes which all of you pay, which have actually not got changed and have been increasing over the years. Can anybody tell me what tax do all of you pay? Right? So all of you pay GST, and that has not got touched. And you pay 18% GST on a whole lot of items, right? That's a huge tax cut, tax rate. And the important point of the GST is it's actually not very fair, because irrespective of your income level, you end up paying the same tax. So income tax is in that sense, because they have levels and they have different rates. The higher you earn, the higher you pay, which from an equitable perspective makes more sense. But 18%, if you go to a restaurant, you pay 18% GST, irrespective of what you earn. It's actually very harsh. It penalizes especially the more backward sections of the society, and that whole area has actually not got addressed. So just something to think about, that while we all feel very happy about personal income tax, we might have actually benefited more if GST rates were cut or rationalized, and that's something which, again, just to place a counter view with all of you. The other sort of counter view I would sort of talk about is, I think Srinivas alluded to it sort of briefly in terms of the fiscal deficit and, whether you pay for it today or you pass it on to, the next generation, because you're borrowing more and it is somebody else's headache. And the reality, the harsh reality of life is that all the older people take the decisions and they leave the outcome to, many of you. So you have to be really concerned about this. But, one of the points is, in terms of CapEx spend versus the kind of money we spend on our revenue expenditure as a country. And I don't know if any of you have an idea of how much of our total budget we spend on capital expenditure, which is really creating infrastructure. So in that sense, it is investing for the future. You build a road, it helps the economy develop further. You build hospitals, it takes care of people, which helps people work better, work for longer hours, earn more money. So it's all investment in the future. It's slightly more boring, but it is investing for the future, as opposed to revenue expenditure, which is really meeting your today's requirements. And can anybody hazard a guess as to which is higher for us as a country? So which do you think is higher? Is revenue expenditure higher or capital expenditure higher? It's not, I heard capital. Is that what you're saying? Yeah. So the reality is completely different. It's actually revenue expenditure today is about 75 to 80% of the money the government earns. The government spends on revenue expenditure, and it's just about 20 to 25%. Every year it will vary a little bit, but 20 to 25% which is spent on capital expenditure. So the government is not, so the budgets, or we are as a country, and I will not say government, but as a country, we are really spending more on today rather than tomorrow. And I don't know if there's a shocking statistic which you all are aware of, that the amount we spend on meeting the interest on the debt we have is actually more than what we spend on our capital expenditure. So that just gives you, so you are actually paying for your past sins. The amount which you spend for paying for your past sins is actually significantly higher than what you are investing in the future. And as individuals, we know that none of us would like to be, in this position. So all I would say is, while it all made us feel temporarily a little happy, the reality, I think, is far more complex and not as great. So some counter views for you to think about, and back to you, Shiv.
Thank you. Yeah, no, excellent counter views. Now, before we go to this round, each one of you, thank you so much. I think for the benefit of this audience, you come out with very insightful things. So we'll just take those insights, unless Sanjeevji has said, no, I want to refute both of you. No, please wait, please wait, sir, please wait. So I'll first start with you. Okay, and no, wait, please, sir. So, yeah, no, they say that the hardest thing to do in life is to understand any country's income tax, right? And to Tabithaji's point, right? Like, the contrarian view is 12 लाख में ऐसा क्या मैजिक है सर कि 12 लाख पे इसके ऊपर रह गया, 12 लाख रुपए 1 रुपया भी बढ़ गया, so there's going to be extra tax. So that's something for you to throw some light on, and we'll come to the next round. Yeah, please, sir. Yeah.
First of all, how many? Let me correct some statistics with due respect to Rajesh sir. Because I'm practicing for 34 years, filing taxes only. This is my main core job. 8.8 crore people filed a return till today in the current year. This is the highest in the last many years, almost. None of the years so many returns were filed. 3.8 crore people actually paid the tax. Out of that, 50 lakhs were such, out of 3.8 crore, having income more than 15 lakhs. That means out of 3.8, remove 50 lakhs, 3.3 people, taxpayers were having income less than 15 lakhs. Only 50 lakhs having income more than 50 lakhs, if I'm made some mistake. So lesser number of people are filing taxes, lesser number of people with the higher tax bracket, but larger number, 3.3 crore out of that entire taxpayers are in the bracket of 15 lakhs or less. Revenue Secretary just now, a few days before, clarified that 1 crore people having income up to 12 lakhs or less. Last year, the 12 lakh limit was having taxation of 80,000 rupees per annum. So those who were earning 12 lakhs, they had to pay 80,000 rupees per annum. Now, by making that 12 lakhs tax-free, in the sense, if your income is less than 12 lakhs, all those 1 crore taxpayers will not be paying any tax. Let us assume that on an average, because some will be paying nil tax, some will be paying 80,000. On an average, 40,000 rupees will be saved on an average for 1 crore people. So 40,000 into 1 crore, that is what exactly will come to the treasury. And that is what 1 lakh crore, what the government says. So the first question, how many? That is what we just understood. Second, taxation as such in India, as we find for last so many years, direct tax collection was much, much lesser. As compared to that, nowadays the direct tax collection is rising by almost 15-17% every year. 2 lakh crore added every year for last 3-4 years. Second point. Third point, very importantly, corporate tax was contributing much more. This is the first time that non-corporate tax, individual taxation has contributed more than corporate tax. Of course, the reason maybe corporates are paying lesser tax as compared to individuals in terms of percentage. The next point, which is very important about the 12 lakh issue, that what he reads. See, at some point of time, when you have a tax slab, at some point of time, somewhere, somebody will benefit, somebody will not benefit much. Those who are earning more than 12 lakh, let us say my income is 11 lakh 99,999. Next year, I will not be paying any tax. But Srinivas sir income is 11 lakhs 999 plus 2 rupees, 12 lakh 1 rupee. Will he pay that 60,000 tax because now the 80,000 has become 60,000 due to slab change? Will he pay? See, his income gone up by 2 rupees, but the tax liability, because he's not entitled for rebate because he's exceeding that 12 lakh will he pay 60,000? No, there is a marginal relief available, which says that if your income is exceeding 12 lakh, your tax liability cannot exceed your income more than 12 lakh. That means he will pay only 2 rupees, not 60,000. So this is the misconception that if anybody is exceeding his 12 lakh limit, he will be liable to pay the whole of the amount of tax on 12 lakh. No, it's not so. And therefore, almost a person getting up to around 12 lakh 75,000, his liability will be equal to the tax on 12 lakh or lesser than that. So he'll not be burdened with more tax. So I think that misconception among the many even chartered accountants I have seen that why the even 1 rupee exceeding my tax liability goes to 60, that is not so. Marginal relief is available. And the third thing, the last thing which I say that the taxation in India has last so many years, 30 years, has seen a reduction as far as rates are concerned. And very surprisingly, Srinivas, this is the real answer to your question. Very surprisingly, as the taxes rates have gone down, the tax collection has improved over a period. And therefore, earlier we had, when I passed the CA, the tax rate was 40-60%. It has gone down to much more, around 5% for person getting around 15 lakhs. And therefore, the tax rate, as and when has gone down, the tax collection has improved. Even I know by my clients, 30 years before, they used to say, Gokul sahab, kuch adjustment karo aur tax bachao. Now I have seen a completely different picture. My clients say, whatever tax liability you pay, and get rid of it. So that is the complete change over the last 30 years taxation in India. We started in 1997, where P. Chidambaram first time reduced the tax to 30%, and therefore thereafter the process continued till this budget. So we must welcome it. I think that solves that 12 lakh issue. The next round I will review all these claims.
Yeah. So sorry, I don't know which claim, but we'll definitely
not claim. Not what the ma'am said or the Rajesh said. There is some changes required. Some correction is required.
Okay,
I think Rajesh what said I corrected it, but for ma'am definitely I need to correct.
Sure, sir. So I wanted to go to Samita ji, and she, I mean, just for the sake of, because the idea is to through debate, you'll get, by taking a counter review, will start to understand what the real truth is. So I think she made a very important point about revenue expenditure versus capital expenditure, and that's also tied with the simple question Rajesh kind of mentioned to all of you. What is the budget, and what's the difference between income and expenditure and the deficit that comes out of it. The thing that I wanted to, the question or aspects that I want to go to Samita ji is this history of revenue expenditure versus capital expenditures. Is this a typical feature of developing countries? What's the history there, and what are the implications for what is a developing country? What is a developed country? And why are we saying, Viksit Bharat, maybe it must have been mentioned 10, 15 times or more in the budget. What is all this?
Yeah, so, fundamentally, I think when you think of different levels of countries, developed or developing, there are 2-3 ways you can think about it. So one is you just look at per capita income, which is nothing but your GDP divided by the number of people. Okay, does anybody have a sense of what is the GDP of India? It's a ballpark number. Anybody? 3.4 trillion. Okay, excellent. That's right. So that's us as a country, and obviously it's divided by 140 crore people. And does anybody have a sense of what is the GDP of the largest country in the world?
20 trillion US.
Yeah, so it's closer to 25, but yeah, I can't see who said it. But yeah, so and of the population of the US is a fraction of what we have. So you can see the difference in per capita income. So that's one measure, just look at per capita income and say, that countries who are above a certain level of per capita income would be developed. But I would actually push and say that is that the only measure of development? Or should we look at a more holistic picture of development? Because this obsession that we have with GDP, is quite strange. The GDP is actually not even 100 years old as a concept. It really sort of came through post the Second World War. And we are very, very obsessed with GDP and X trillion economy we want to be and all of that. But we must look also at social indicators, because ultimately, if you're talking about the quote which you made, that it's not the soil or the possessions which you have, but the people, right? The quality of life of the people which you have. So I would argue you should actually look at a broad range of social indicators, the health, education level, the access, I mean, some of the statistics which one would track, number of children who have access to good health facilities, education, etc. So I would say there's a lot more factors which you would take to say what is the developed economy. But one measure which I think is very relevant, especially for all of us in India, you see a country is really developed when the rich take the public transport. That, to my mind, is a very physical and tangible experience. If you go to London, you go to Switzerland, you will see billionaires taking the local tube and the local tram. And countries which are poor, you will not see that happening. So one very sort of tangible way for all of us to know whether we are a rich country or a poor country is to really sort of ask this question to yourself, because you know the answer, Nobody can fool you about this answer. And nobody can say we are Viksit Bharat or we can say what we want. Because this answer actually tells you, a country where the richest people are comfortable taking the local transport, to my mind, that's one indicator, a very good barometer of how developed that country really is.
Thank you. So I wanted to go to Rajesh and he mentioned there was a very important point on matching the revenue side and expenditure side of the budget. So maybe first we should give the opportunity to the folks here. So what do you think, who's one of the biggest economists you would have known? Any names here? Whose influence continues, I mean, this whole budgetary thing, right? The fiscal deficit. There's a book, if you can give me the right name. Sorry?
Governor Rangarajan.
No, sorry. We have to look beyond India, unfortunately. Many concepts we have taken in India are borrowed concepts, which necessarily may not have been that way. But it's unfortunately that, because India is a very small, economically, we are a very small nation in a sea full of very, very big ships, if you were to call a ship as a nation. But so I'll go to Rajesh ji and throw some light on this budgetary economics. And Samita ji mentioned that it started after the post-World War. There was a hint there. So
that's a lesson in economic history. But this whole exercise of budget, and I'll take a step even back. Not just economics, but this entire this whole thing that we are doing in finance. Most of you are MBA finance, I believe. Is that a fair assumption? So how old is financial theory itself? When did all this stock markets, portfolios, portfolio management theory you're doing? Do you know how old that is? So yeah, so just to tie in that conversation, I think most of what you and I are learning today, or we're talking about, whether it's an economic point of view, budgets, taxes, or it is about financial market theory, stock markets, all of this, most theory is very, very recent. Right? So I think from the 1940s, late 1940s, 1950s to 1975, 1978, those 30, 40 years is where most of this theory actually got solidified. Most of what you and I are learning today or experiencing today in financial markets or economics, etc., is that recent. I mean, it's very, very old. You guys were not even born then, all of that, but it's not too old. So it's all relatively new, right? Now, coming down to specifics of, again, can I get the conversation to this budget? Yeah, and some, the economic points that I'm trying to bring out, with the backdrop of today's budget, right, this budget that we have. I made a point at the beginning where I said this is one of the first budgets where I've seen a move away from capex or building infrastructure onto savings and consumption. again, why I said it's important is because from my lens, when you look at India, as a global citizen, you're looking at this country called India, there are two primary drivers for this economy. One is infrastructure and second is consumption. So when you're investing into India as an investor, you're looking at Indian companies, Indian businesses from that lens. You're saying either it's a consumption-driven economy or it's an infrastructure-driven economy. So as an investor, I'm going to take exposure to those businesses which are either facilitating or in the consumption market, or they are building infrastructure. For a long time, till I think about as recent as 10, 15 years back, till then, the focus on infrastructure was completely lacking. Right? But now, if you go out in any city, not just Mumbai, by the way, and I presume people are here from everywhere, or you've traveled across India, you go into Northern India, Southern India, etc., etc. And I'm just trying to correlate the budgetary implications and numbers into our real everyday life, right? So just bear with me for that. I think if you go out into any tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 city, towns, etc., you will see infrastructure really getting built, right? Now, why is today's budget moving away from focusing on infrastructure to consumption and savings and all that? There can be 10,000 reasons, etc., etc. We really don't know what's going on in the minds of the finance minister or the ministry. But one thing that I can clearly see with my own personal experience is that in 2004, 2005, that era when we started building the first real national highways, it is called the Golden Quadrilateral Project. I don't know how many of you are even familiar with that. But the first time real world-class highways were built connecting north, south, east, west. India is a diamond-shaped country if you look at. Those highways were built about 20 years back. We started building it about 20 years back. Now, in economics theory, you would have also learned that whenever any city, town, village gets access to roads or railways, when they get connected, there's a lot of economic prosperity that flows in. Because then you can do economics, you can buy, sell things, you can have job opportunities, you can travel to that place. A lot of goods can come into that place, which people can consume. A lot of money can be made because employment generation happens, etc., etc. So this is all of economics theory. I'm just linking it to what the budget is all about. So I think the delta, the impact that when the government spent money on building those highways, the delta or the positive impact that it had on people's lives like you and me was huge. Yeah. How many of you are here from non-metros? You grew up in non-metro. So mostly people from metros, I believe, right? Have you traveled across India in trains or roads, by road, etc., north, south, wherever? Yeah, Bombay में ही गया. हाँ? यहीं मरेंगे, यहीं जिएंगे, ऐसा है. So India, okay, let me then give you one more context. India is very different than Bombay. Bombay is not India. All right, at least you've seen Bollywood movies. उसमें India देखा क्या है? वो Bombay नहीं है. Right? So when you are building that kind of infrastructure, I'm just giving example of roads, but there were so many other things, railways, dams, airports, ports, everything got built over the last 20 years. The positive impact that it had on our lives was huge. Today, that same 100 crores if you spend on a project, building a road, you're widening a road, etc., etc., it has a positive impact, but not so much. So therefore, the focus rightly now has to go away from all of that into building other things. So, the tax cuts, for example, or other similar things like, infusing more liquidity in the economy, creating jobs, consumption, all of that. Thank you. Are you done? Sorry. Yeah.
No, so the thing that I wanted to just mention to folks here is his name is John Maynard Keynes. And this particular economist, he brought the theory of aggregate demand, right? And there's a beautiful, there are two things definitely this group can look at. There's one book called as Essays in Persuasion. The name of the book is Essays in Persuasion. It's freely available. You can just Google it, you'll get it. And the second one is Letters to My Grandchildren. This is a very short letter because, and that is also freely available. Both of these you must read, but the source of this budgetary economics, stems from there. And I'll come back with history, some more history after some more time. But let me go to Sanjeev sir first. So I wanted to, get 2 points that Samita ji mentioned, right? And probably Rajesh has also referred to. There is one thing, where we have budgeted so much money for revenue expenditure. Have we really been able to spend it? So, sorry, that's question number one. The second question is, you've got very, very useful statistics on, and very insightful statistics on the number of taxpayers. You mentioned that they increased by two crores every year, right? No, yeah, 2 lakh crores. Yeah. So if that is the case, then I wanted to understand what's the breakup of these taxpayers. How many people are educated? Because there's a number of taxpayers, but how many of them really know what this tax means? So is there a statistics available in terms of education level? So 2 questions, sir.
As far as second question, I am not really aware who are educated taxpayers, because the statistics is available on the income tax website about the various taxpayer categories. But whether they are educated or not, at least I am not aware. About your first question, there are 2 aspects. As far as Rajesh just referred about roads, development of road, I fully agree. In fact, some president, I don't know his name, I don't remember now, but were asked why America is rich. Or if the America is rich, that's why your roads are good. He said, no, it's the other way around. Our roads are good, that's why America is rich. US is rich. Quite long, very old, this quote was from US president. But the importance of good roads or good infrastructure for any developing economy, of course, is necessary to strengthen the economy and to have a good investment climate in the economy. So I fully agree, first of all. As far as the shift to the consumption is concerned, yes, there is a shift to the consumption, but it is not by neglecting infrastructure investment or infrastructure spending. Nirmala Sitharaman ji, after the budget, many interviews she had given, she clearly mentioned about this infrastructure spending. One question was, why infrastructure spending is mamuli this time? She said, no, it's not a mamuli. Last time it was 11.11 crore. This time it's 11.21 crore. Srinivas sir rightly asked, what about the spending? Whether any spending has been, the spending was miserable, of course, this year. And for she said that the first quarter election was there, but she's expecting spending which will match around 10 lakh crore in the near future. And it will not be as lagging behind as because of election. But of course, there's a pertinent point that whatever the provisions are made for the infrastructure, whether that money is really spent or not. But in my opinion, of course, now since no more elections are there, very few elections are there, after that there'll be, spending will gradually go up. And we will have a better spending in the coming year. Even Nirmala ji herself said that next year we'll find a good spending on the infrastructure. So there is no shift as such. Infrastructure is still is the government's on the menu. And she gave a good example on that. Why I'm referring she, because this is not my statistics, she has given it. So credit should go to her. She said that, somebody said about the revenue expenditure. What is revenue expenditure? What your father, mother earn, most of the part we are using for a day-to-day life, out of the money earned. But some portion we use for saving it for future, for capital expenditure, as rightly said, which will give benefit in the years to come. But as far as our budget is concerned, major portion is on a revenue expenditure. Of course, our concern on the interest portion is definitely correct. That interest debt servicing is very important. The portion should go down, and therefore, what we have to see, not this particular budget, but over a period of time, whether the government is on that fiscal discipline path, whether the government is going on that fiscal discipline path. Number one, reducing the debt or not. And very specifically, Finance Minister said that we are on that reducing fiscal deficit so that in the years to come, we can reduce the borrowing to 50% of that amount, which is presently much more. So the government's intention is to reduce the borrowing, definitely reduce the fiscal deficit, but not to compromise for the growth and infrastructure. This is most important. And this has been facilitated because of the good tax revenue, which direct and indirect both taxes are now, we find that there's a good collection happening. And the good collection is happening because of the computerization, artificial intelligence, and more people are coming forward. And of course, as I earlier said, by reducing the taxes to make it moderate. Second point, which was very important, and again, I agree with ma'am, is that about there are many other aspects other than budget. So we should look at those aspects. I fully agree. Yes, budget is one of the exercises. But the importance of budget is because when the budget is presented in the parliament and become the finance act, it has a government nod. Since both the houses of the parliament, they say yes to a particular qanun. So it is necessary. It's even though it's a very formality, but it is necessary, and therefore budget has its own importance. But of course, I agree with her as far as her other points are concerned that there are many things which need to be looked into. But today we are gathered here to decoding the budget. So that budget, whatever is the pass as a Parliament Act and then becomes an act for the Finance Act, that is the importance is nevertheless there. The next point is about the GST. There is a lot of misconceptions about the GST. GST is nothing but it's like there were 17 many acts which were prevailing indirect taxes. Now it is they are all bundled into one act, first of all, in 2017. And that too after making a constitutional amendment with the nod from all the parties, first of all. All the parties, majority of the parties, 2/3 of the majority say yes to the GST, and the 17 acts have now bundled. Being practicing in the field of direct and indirect tax, I can say that the industries or those who are in business, they were finding very difficult to tackle with those 17 acts and to deal with those 17 various officers, assessments, a lot of unnecessary, unproductive work. Now, only because of GST and entirely on the network platform, on online, the law has become easy. As far as the rates of taxes are concerned, no, this is a very big misconception. I would say pre-GST era, the rates were quite high. I would say more than 30%. Why? Because we could not see the rate. Because it's under VAT. No, we used to see only VAT rate. Earlier, the goods were manufactured, excise duty was payable, goods were moved out of factory, VAT was applicable, when the goods enter into cities like Mumbai, octroi was applicable, taken together, it was 32%. Now the rates have gone down substantially. 18% apparently looks like bigger, but it was much bigger earlier when we had no GST, and many more laws were there. So one has to understand that GST is not that the laws are, of course, I agree with her with only one point. That is the service tax, which was having 15%, earlier it was started with 5% in 1994, has now gone up to 18%. So if at all the GST need to be reduced, it's about the services. But goods, the GST rates are much lesser. And I may give you this information again revealed by the finance minister recently, that they are going within the next 2 or 3 months, they're going to restructure the entire GST rate structure. So we may see the reduction in the rates, those who are in 18 can go down to 12. One more misconception, all life-saving, life required things like bread, butter, milk, they are not butter, bread and milk, they are having zero GST. Little rich foods are having the 5% to 12% GST. I agree only with about the services which are highly cost at 18%. So the second misconception. Third, in the budget, the GST is not discussed. For me, the separate GST council is there, which will take care of the GST changes. So budget is not a place where the GST can be touched upon. Of course, roadmap about the GST can be discussed by the finance minister, which she has discussed not in the budget, but the interview given up thereafter. So likely we can see the changes. And what the budget, the GST council consists of, finance minister from the various states, and very surprisingly since 2017. Whatever GST council meetings had happened, they have a unanimous decision. Even though the finance ministers are from different parties, they don't take a decision unless there is a consensus among themselves. And this is the best part of GST, that GST law is passed, amended with the unanimous consensus among the various stakeholders from various states. And therefore, it is not something Delhi people or the Delhi politicians are thinking about and deciding about the GST. It is the entire India, which represented by all the state finance ministers, elected, of course. They represent us, and thereafter GST decisions are taken. So, so as far as GST is concerned, you may find changes in the GST council meeting, not in the budget, but of course, as Nirmala ji said, likely we may have some restructuring in the GST. As far as the implementation of GST is concerned, it is very badly implemented. I personally feel.
Shall we go to that later? Because we are cognizant that we are, we are at 4:30 now. I guess we have 15 more minutes. Is that right? So we'll probably cover two questions, but I wanted to, Samita ji mentioned about there are a lot of things that are outside the budget. Now, as students, all of us are students, you are actually giving exams, we are not. But, as students, what do you observe in the economy, and which means everything around you? What are the two things, by show of hands, like if somebody can volunteer and talk about it, what are the two things or three things that you have observed, and what are the changes that have taken place in those two, three things in the last 3-4 months, and particularly after the budget? What is the one thing that could give you an indication of what has happened because of the budget? Smile in the middle class, that's a very good hint. I mean, that's an excellent answer.
To be part. So what has happened after budget is only a smile.
Yeah, but I wanted responses from folks here. Anybody? Anybody watches the stock market? Yes, sir. Yes.
Government try to pumping more money economy and try to activate economic activity, try to more generate employment.
Okay, but are you seeing a change because of the budget, or in that? Are you seeing a visible change in that? In what you just said? It takes time. So let me go to this panel and then take it from them. We'll do this as a quick round, sir, if you don't mind. If there are any changes at all, or you mentioned already smile, so maybe I should go to Samita ji and then Rajesh to understand their views. If they are seeing any change at all, and if not, there are none. Or any quick indicators on what people should look at, after the budget is announced in India.
There's obviously a feel-good sentiment which is there, as they quote by Sanjeev. But I think one indicator which most people would look at is to see how the stock markets have reacted, because that kind of gives you a sense of not just individuals but the broader economy. And as I presume there are people who track stock markets here. How many track or invest? Okay, so some do, and for those who do and for those who don't, we know that the markets actually have been not great at all, and I think that's in some sense some difference.
Great, thank you. Rajesh ji?
I think I'll revert back to what you said in your opening comments, and I'll contrast that to 30 years back, 40 years back. The budget day was a very important day in the life of the country. You would have TV screens, everybody would be glued to the TV screens, and then the finance minister would walk with a bag in his hand, and all cameras would zoom on that bag because the bag had the budget papers, and it was a big deal. It was a day when, you didn't want to listen to the prime minister also, because the finance minister was going to present the budget. And I think the point that you alluded to over the years, the importance of that day, that budget, that document is come off.
Is that a sign of development?
Huge. It just means that the government is now acting as and when it needs to act. It's communicating policies or measures, processes as and when the need arises. It doesn't necessarily have to wait for one fine day, which is the budget day. And I think that's a huge step. So I think the bag is also gone now to the tab. So I think it's as a country we're making progress for sure. There's no question about it. And I think I think true progress will be made when after the budget day, you and I don't need to get together to really discuss it.
Thank you. So I wanted to go back to this audience and we talked about the stock market. There's another indicator which are the interest rates that people should watch, and interest rates you can watch you can go and look at just Google interest rates and probably in finance.google.com, where these interest rates are headed. I wanted to ask, first from all of you, and then since we've got about 5-7 minutes left, how rich do you want to become? Question number one. And who's got the highest, I want to become really rich. So somebody who's got a burning desire who wants to become rich. That is question number one. And how rich should India become? That is question number two from the audience. And then I'll go to this group as well. How rich should one become?
I think they're doing MBA for charity. They don't want to make money. They're all MBA for social causes. After the graduation, they're going to do social work. Nobody wants to become rich.
Nobody wants to become rich? Yes, please, sir.
I would love to become rich.
But how rich?
जो भी मैं देखूं, जो भी मुझे पसंद है वो.
No, but your boss, you have to give a number. You are an MBA student, right?
So, to assume a figure, I would like to earn more than 25 lakhs per annum.
Okay. So what if, the lady sitting next to you, she's getting 50 lakhs.
But if I can...
So she's aspiring to get 50 lakhs. So what will you aspire?
If I'm satisfied in 25 lakhs, then it's great for me.
Great. Awesome point. So how rich should India become? How rich should India become? You could answer it, or so there's lots of other countries around here. $25 trillion is one benchmark, and Vikasit Bharat has got another benchmark. So how rich should India become? There's no right answer, folks, and there's no wrong answer. It's an answer. You want to give somebody else a chance? Sure.
But basically, India, some state is more rich. Generally, in the Maharashtra, Gujarat, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and Gujarat, they contribute more in GDP, but requirement is more focus on the backward state. Point number first. And the point number second is more number of employment generation is requirement, because if the employment generate, they create money in the market and boost the consumption and increase the production. Second and third number, government try to more welfare schemes. They help the vulnerable section of society to boost level and contribute in GDP, like male and gender balancing.
Not really understood your answer. I mean, the question really was, how rich should India become? Should it become America? Should it become Japan? Should it become? We are already. I think we have already overtaken Japan as a country. But that was the question. But I'll go to this esteemed panel, and understand their views on both the aspects. So first is because this budgetary exercise is richness, right? What is the whole point of this? Like money. Right. So how much money should we have? So that's the question really. So I'll go to Samita ji, and we've got maybe two minutes each, and then we can close there. And one more last question, if you permit.
Yeah, so I think it's less about how much we want to be and more about how we get there. Because otherwise we all obsess about something without spending, I think, too much time thinking how we will get there. I would only say that nothing is given to us. Just because we are the fifth largest economy, there are lots of examples in history where countries have reached this level and then collapsed. The whole of South America is full of that, and there are so many other examples. So whatever target we set, we can set 25 trillion, which is the US side, we can set China, which is about 15. whatever it might be. I think more than the target, as a country, we should focus on what we need to do to reach the target.
Okay, and how rich should an individual become?
No, I liked your answer actually, because I don't think there's a one size fits all. And I think more than focusing on a number, if we can learn to be satisfied with what we have, that's a great start, especially in today's social media where, you're always looking at what your neighbors have. I think that's a great idea.
So just in the spirit of being different, you should aspire to be very rich. All this about I am satisfied, these are all goals to have. I don't know anybody who read that book yet. I mean, it's practically speaking, it's all aspiration. We all want to be there. We have a very rich culture and heritage which espouses all these, good things. But it's always good to be, having peace of mind, being satisfied with a lot of money in your bank account. I would want that. So I think how rich should one aspire to be? I think as rich as your answer, that I should be able to do what I want, wherever I want, wherever I want. That much money I should have, right? As a country, I think again, I'll take something from what you said earlier. A very valid point she made, in a lot of other things that she said, is that I think as a country, you should be rich enough that the richest person should be able to take public transport. You and I should not be discussing pollution, right? If you are standing on a railway station platform, you should not have the fear that you'll just be run over by somebody. Distance, public distance, all basic amenities and basic things. But I think that is where the country has to aspire to be. I want to, say that we are a rich country and a, country to be when I can, oppose any politician if I don't agree with the politician without any threat to my life. I mean, here, how many of you think you can just go and object to some illegal construction somewhere near your house? What anyway. That I think these are reflections of being a rich country. Right. So I want now, maybe you've got a chance to refute here. So I want to see if you can reconcile the two statements Rajesh made. I'll give it to you. So he made two statements. The first statement is, you should be as rich as you want. So suppose, what if, theoretically speaking, who is the richest person in the world? Any two, I don't know who is in the Musk. So you all like him? So sir, what if everybody wants to become Musk? Can everybody become Musk? And so that's the first question. The second question is, does the answer to the first question reconcile to the answer to the second question that the richest few should travel in train?
Yeah. First of all, I will talk in both aspects. First of all, that question how rich India should be. At least I wish that India should be such a rich country where the government need not feed 80 crore people at all. Everyone will have his own meal. Indian government, our taxpayers' money will not go for Ladki Bahin. The Bahin will pay tax to the government. Ladka Kardata. That is what that is. So that is the first thing. Second, how much rich I should be or any of you should be. Just now I had a WhatsApp university one good post which says that when I was going in cycle, the motorbike पे जोर से जाने वाले की तरफ मतलब मुझे ये आता था. I was jealous of that person. After many years of efforts, I got motorcycle. When I started thinking that motor car वाला जोर से चला गया. So I started dreaming of a motor car. After many years of lot of efforts, correct, I got the keys of the motor car. When I saw the one who was going in motor car is now going in cycle every day for health. So I wish one should have wealth which will not deteriorate in health and happiness. So that is the most important. How much wealth? There is no limit. There is no limit. I don't want to be much. I have to get wealthy and happy. If that is the possibility, then happiness index should go up to in my India. I've been seeing the earlier generation. where pre-1991 era, where we had only one car ambassador of Maruti, one highway from Mumbai to Pune, one airline, one telephone company, which used to take 8 years to get one connection. And now virtually the situation has changed and it is changing. So we should hope for the better. My richness, of course, I think healthy, wealthy, and happy. That is most important in my life. Thank you.
So one last quick, this thing is one book each to recommend from each one of you to people. Who should go first, ma'am?
For taxation, I think if at all one has to have a taxation, Singhania is the book which one should refer. It's a very good book on taxation. But otherwise, on economy, I don't have, because I don't read the book on economy. The Google is the most liked book for me. And my own personal experience with my clients, I have 1,200 more clients and they interact with me, and therefore that is the book best thing. The good experience is my book.
So it's very hard for me to pick one because I read a lot of books. But I think right now, if I would just recommend and given this, so maybe I'll do two. One is Morgan Housel. I forgot the name. Money. Not the latest, the big one. Psychology of money. Sorry, did I take yours? So I think that's a must read for anybody at your age. It's a very thin book, even if you're not a reader. And if there's only one thing you remember from this lecture, is please read that book. And the second book, I think, which is also very interesting, particularly in today's day and age, and a little bit of a forward thinking, gives you a very good context of India vis-a-vis the world. I would say Chip War. I forget the author, but it's a very famous book. If you Google it, you'll get it.
Yeah, I think, so I mean, like I'm a voracious reader, I read 5 books at the same time. So there are 4 or 5 books in my house with a marker, I keep marking and reading. But I think one thing for this audience that I would recommend, same author, Morgan Housel, the book's name is Same as Ever. But I think you should first read Psychology of Money before you read Same as Ever. Both not bad books, very thin books, very clear message. I think these are the books. This is one book. And the other one is called Clear Thinking. The author is Shane Parrish. I think these are the 2 books that I would recommend. Hello, your recommendations about the book?
I think that, one of the Keynes' letters, his letter to his grandchildren, right? A letter for the future. So it's a very short letter. You can Google it. I don't know if you've already done that. But it has got lessons not just in economics, but also in investing. And it's also got a lesson in inflation. So that's a very good thing to. And so you can look at BAFA lectures. I don't know if you, and Amartya Sen has spoken on these BAFA lectures. So you can Google them, and you can also look at, I mean, I can keep on going, but these are easier reads. So Amartya Sen's, what is that book called? The name will come to me. I know that I'm aware I don't have time. Anyways, it's not with me right now. But sorry. I wanted to leave you with one quote. So, and that if that quote is relevant to the richness question. This was written by Argumentative Indian. Thank you. Argumentative Indian. It's a very good book. He's written what India was or used to be. But this quote is from Keynes, and it is stuck with me forever. He written it in 1931 after First World War. He almost foresaw the Second World War. And this is from a book called Essays in Persuasion. So he's trying to persuade the governments of Europe to act responsibly, right? So this quote is, thus for the first time, since its creation, man will be faced with his permanent problem. How to use his freedom from pressing economic cares, how to occupy the leisure which science and compound interest will have won for him, to live wisely, agreeably, and well. Thank you very much. I think we are done here, right? Cheers.
We thank to all our speakers for an engaging and insightful discussion. Kindly give a huge round of applause for our speakers. We will now open a floor for question and answers. As we have received various questions from our audience, I would request Miss Pooja Matre to ask her question.
My name is Pooja Matre, and my question is, with gross market borrowing set at 14.82 trillion, how will the government manage the debt sustainability and its plan to reduce debt to GDP to 50% by 2031?
So I think, these are very big numbers. And what you can do is a simple exercise of uploading the last 3-4 budgetary speeches. Upload it to a tool called as Notebook LM. Okay, and it's a Google tool, it's free. You can upload it to the tool and see for if any of the budgets, what has been referred to, and if all those commitments have been kept or not. So you'll probably find the answer is no. It's a hard, it's very hard for people. If you had a chance to just look at one snippet from the budget, and that snippet was that the government is trying very hard in different ways to fund this. But I think history has shown that it is a very tall ask.
Please remember, it's a budget exercise. मतलब हम चाहते हैं कि ऐसा हो. I know from what we want to what actually happens in life. That's, I think, what Srinivas is talking about. But there's a plan. To answer your question, there is a plan. What happens to that plan, we don't know.
Mr. Yash Pandey, kindly ask your question.
Hello everyone, my name is Yash Pandey and I would like to ask a question that what changes in the TDS and TCS rules should a taxpayer be aware about?
First is TDS on the rent, the limit has gone up from 4,40,000 to 6 lakhs per annum. So thereby no required to deduct the TDS if the rent is less than 50,000 a month. Again, this provision, this change is in line with that same theory what Rajesh ji said that if there is no TDS up to 6 lakh per annum, that will have more money in the hands of the person who is getting rent. And out of that money, he will start consuming or saving. So there is the same line of consumption. But in my answer, I told infrastructure also is not neglected. That is what one thing. Second, about TCS, when you remit the money abroad, beyond 7 lakhs, there is a tax collected at source from a remittance. That limit of 7 lakh has been raised to 10 lakhs. So up to 10 lakhs, there is no TCS, no tax will be collected. To just make the point clear, the collected tax is just like a tax paid by you. When you file the return, you can claim back that tax from the government. This is first thing. Second, if you are going abroad for education, and that too with the educational loan, there was a 0.5 TCS applicable. The budget has removed that. So that 0.5 TCS is no more required for going abroad for education with the educational loan. So these two major changes as far as TCS, TDS are concerned.
Thank you for all your questions and to our panelists for their insightful answers. I would now like to invite Dr. Amit O to felicitate our esteemed guests. I would now like to invite Dr. Trupti Nayak, HOD at VIT School of Management for a thank you note. Thank you so much, Sana. What an insightful session, isn't it? Yeah. Thanks to all the panelists and the moderator for engaging our young minds into the discussion. It was great to hear you all on this platform. I would like to formally say thanks to the campus director, Mr. Milind Tadvalkar, Mr. Amit Oksar, director and COO of VIT. I would also like to extend my thanks to VSIT principal, Dr. Rohini Kelkar ma'am, for extending her support for the survey and for the BMS students and faculty members. I would like to say thanks to the MMS faculty members for being here and to the wonderful audience of MMS, PG and BMS students. I would like to mention specially about my organizing team, all my MMS students, and special mention to Harsh sir for tirelessly coordinating for the event. Yeah, so breathing outside the body. Alright. We thank you all for being a part of this event and enlightening our students. I formally conclude that the event is over and I request everyone to please rise for the national anthem. The national anthem, not the national song, please remember. Let's all assemble here near the stage for a group photograph. Yeah.
आपल्याला न बोललं त्याचाच बोलू आपल्याला कशाला